Saira Khan, TV presenter and entrepreneur, is best known for her stint on the first series of The Apprentice. But despite all their success, Saira and husband Steve Hyde long for another baby, the one thing that remains beyond their control.
What do you say after you finish? You say, what do you say to Mummy? If somebody said to me now, Zach is the only child you're ever going to have, that would upset me, and it wouldn't feel right, and we would want to do something about it, and that's why I am going to adopt a little baby girl. We want to complete our family.
Four years ago, Saira made a life-changing visit to an orphanage in Pakistan that she's never been able to forget.
There was something that was left behind from that visit that I brought back to England. And it's always stayed with me and in my mind. I believe in fate that I was meant to go there for a reason.
Pakistan is one of the most dangerous countries in the world. But despite that, Steve and Saira are determined to return to the orphanage in search of a baby.
Oh, gosh.
Well, they're desperate, aren't they?
Before they set off on this journey into the unknown, they will have to be approved through the grueling adoption process here in the UK.
This whole journey is going to be painful. It's not going to go according to plan. People are going to wind me up.
If we jump in at the deep end, and I will be challenging, I'm afraid.
I'm going to get crazy. But stop saying regularly. When do you... Steve's going to do my head in. I'm going to do Steve's head in. I can visualise all those points, but the bit that I'm thinking about is the day that I get a little baby in my arms.
Four years ago, Steve and Saira discovered they couldn't conceive naturally. And to have Zach, they had to go through IVF.
Are you going to do Daddy all the kisses all over his face?
The moment that Zach kind of came into the world, it was like somebody had taken another heart and put it into me and just given me a whole new capacity to love something else or to love someone else. It was just a completely overwhelming experience from that point of view.
And kiss Daddy's ears.
They wanted another child, but their second IVF attempt failed. Saira was nearly 40.
And then Mummy put you to bed.
We're both older parents, but Saira in particular, the clock is ticking. We actually agreed before Saira went for a second bout of IVF, so this was after we had Zach, we actually agreed that we'd give it one go, and if it didn't work, we'd look to adopt.
In the UK, so few infants are given up for adoption. Saira and Steve know they could be waiting for years for the baby they so desperately want.
We have a higher chance of getting a newborn baby from somewhere like Pakistan. Whereas in England, it's very unlikely that in the time frame that we're looking at, that we would get a baby. And the reason adopting a baby is important to us is because we already have a child, and Zach is 2, and we're thinking about how that would fit in with his life. It's not just about me and Steve, it's about bringing a new baby and giving that baby attention and love alongside Zach.
What's more, Saira has her heart set on bringing home a sister for Zach. Babies are abandoned and left to die on the streets of Pakistan every day. There are no official records of how many. Most of them are girls. The Edie Foundation charity took in 240 of these infants last year. Some of them were found in special cots, where babies can be left at any time of the day or night.
I know that baby girls are thrown into the skip in Pakistan because they're girls, because the women who have them are really poor, they can't look after them. we also want to be able to give this child an opportunity for a fantastic life, to be brought into a really loving family. And for me, that is something to fight for. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you, baby.
Only 140 children were adopted into the UK from overseas last year. PACT, Parents and Children Together, deal with inter-country and domestic adoptions on behalf of 35 local authorities.
Hi, I'm returning a call from Liz Chalice. My name's Hannah Penny.
Even though they're hoping to adopt a child from Pakistan, Syra and Steve have to undergo the same rigorous assessment as anyone who adopts within the UK.
The process that prospective adopters need to follow is almost identical. So anyone coming to PACT, whether they want to adopt in the UK or overseas, will need to have the same regulated checks and procedures undertaken, the same application process, very similar preparation groups, identical home studies almost.
Syra and Steve have applied to PACT, and if they're accepted, their already pressurised lives will be placed under close scrutiny.
OK, so it needs to be seen, does it?
Stephen, the social worker's going to come here and say, why have you got the child's toy right at the back of the garden? And I'm going to say, oh, it's because my husband doesn't like the lawn to look bad. These social workers who have been going around to loads of people's houses, they do it for a living, they know what they're looking for. And I'm saying that we've got to forget what's perfect and what's right, because I think you and I, honestly, what are we going to be like?
We're going to be fine, Zara, but the one thing I would say, I've got no problem with having it, but it needs to go towards the back of the garden, OK?
An introductory assessment with an experienced PACT social worker is the first step on the process.
Not even started and we're stressed out, honest to God. Hi, hello, Sarah. I'm Syra.
Sorry,
nice to meet you. And you.
I'm Steve. Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Sarah Pepys will examine who they are and how much they understand about being an adoptive parent.
Religion.
I was born into a Muslim household and I am a Muslim.
I was christened, so I'm a Christian.
So both your parents were Pakistani?
Pakistani, Kashmiri, yep.
I grew up in a family with a brother and sister, and they're both married.
My dad died in '98 when he went for the first time in 30 years back to Pakistan with Mum.
We have to start from the understanding that adoption is a very difficult thing. And social workers are often accused of being negative about it. Oh, you're always saying how difficult it's going to be. Well, it is for some people, and it is for children as well. So the whole process is about helping people know themselves. And we all go through life managing as well as we can, and we cover up those bits that are uncomfortable or make us vulnerable because we're achievers. And part of what the assessment is about is say, let's look at the cracks, because it's likely that those cracks are going to show themselves when a child's come. How would you envisage it being when you bring a little girl home from Pakistan?
I would do exactly the same as I did with Zach, is take the baby with me wherever I went. Zach would probably, by that time, be in a nursery. So,
But if you think that from the outset, Zach knew your smell, he knew your voice, he quickly learned how you held him. And any baby you pick up from Pakistan will have been held by loads of other people. So there's no certainty inside them about what feels safe. In fact, nothing feels very safe.
Of course.
I mean, even tiny babies know that. You know, I'll cry and someone... We're being real here. We're not playing games that this is happy ever after, because it isn't always. I mean, life isn't like that. So let's be real about what people are going to need to make it as good as possible.
Syra and Steve will now undergo an intensive series of social work home visits, each lasting up to 3 hours.
There's an issue of them running the agenda.
Yes.
I mean, you're going to have your agenda, but they
Yeah.
will also have their agenda, of course,
Yes.
that they want to get through this process that
Yeah.
you've got. And I would think it might be useful for you to have some of those unexpected questions that sort of get underneath what they're
Yeah.
expecting.
Over the next 6 months, Hannah Penny will examine their lives, relationship, and backgrounds.
For that as well, particularly maybe with Steve, because he's the quieter person, is he, from what you've written?
Well, if he's quieter, it's because Sarah's quite...
Oh, okay, so in an individual
Extrovert.
session he won't be.
I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
At the end of the home study, Hannah will present a report to the PAC director on their suitability to become adoptive parents. The assessment will demand and then test their ability to be completely open and honest.
My life, not to be seen as anybody different.
Yeah.
In their first sessions, Hannah wants to talk to Steve and Syra separately.
Kind of, yeah, to talk a bit about, you know, your kind of personal history and how you are today as a person. Thanks for your family tree, that's great. I don't know if you'd be able to talk me through it a bit, if that's okay, because that's a good way to sort of start understanding, you know,
Sure.
your family and where you come from.
My mum and my dad were both born in the same town in Epping in Essex.
And what about your mum and dad's relationship? They had an arranged marriage, I think you said.
Yeah, they had an arranged marriage, and interestingly enough, which isn't typical, they weren't related to each other.
I was born at home in Epping, you know, very, very pleasant family environment. I had a brother and sister.
Mum came to this country, she was dumped in the middle of a place called Long Eaton. Bloody hell, look at it, just a complete shithole. Dad was always at work, he was working in a factory along with lots of the other immigrants that kind of went over at that time.
My mum was very good at getting us to kind of appreciate classical music. She'd always invent lots of different stories and to classical music, and we'd end up playing and being whether it's dinosaurs to the rites of spring.
Mum was really dependent on my dad because my dad was the one that could speak, you know, English, and he could drive. My dad had a really bad temper and it was uncontrollable, and we saw things like, you know, we'd come home and we'd be watching Grange Hill and the TV would be flung out, and that's because he didn't want us to watch Grange Hill.
We'd spend a Sunday, for example, we'd go off to a picnic, stately home, walk in the forest, zoos, into London to see the sights.
And I think like any relationship, they bickered a lot.
I mean, I don't remember my parents arguing. Frankly, I'd probably been overly mollycoddled.
Yeah.
He is so calm, he is so measured.
Just sort of solid.
Yeah.
And Syra's more energetic.
In control of his emotions.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I found really attractive about him.
I don't get angry.
You do sports and...
Yeah, I do.
you said that you've had no previous relationships before Steve. Nothing at all, or just very brief relationships?
Well, I haven't had anything serious, and so my mum has not met anybody else apart from Steve, and I've never taken any other man home and said, "Mum, this is my boyfriend." But that's not to say that I haven't spent time with other people than Steve.
Yeah.
Would you like me to take you to cricket?
Yeah.
It's good fun. We had a game that was raising money for the tsunami, and that was Pakistan and England. And I made curry pasties.
I think I came
You came
once,
too.
yeah.
That's great.
Steve's parents, Mac and Margaret, and Syra's mum, Hanifa, all support their plan to adopt.
Will you babysit for me?
But they're naturally anxious about what will happen in Pakistan.
If you do get a chance to adopt a child, does that mean they choose the child for you?
Well, this is the thing, because babies come in every day, basically, every single day.
Well, as newborn babies?
As newborn babies or whatever. We will have no idea who the mother is. We'll have no idea. These babies they come to this orphanage and they are just dropped there. And that's it.
I think part of the emotional point will be all the babies that we're leaving.
Yeah.
You know, that could be
That's very true. And it
I don't think it's. I know I had to say that,
emotional.
but
Whatever
that's
happens,
going to be really
isn't
tough.
really emotional. You're going to have to be quite strong.
A lot of people say to us, oh, one of the first questions they ask is like, are you going to be able to choose the baby? And that's something we'd sort of thinking, well, I don't know how that bit works. You know, I really don't know, and I don't know whether it's important, but, you know, at the moment, sitting here in England, thinking about a baby and trying to connect the two, it's a bit weird. And so you are thinking, well, I'd like to be able to choose the baby, but then, like Steve says, you know, well, you might not, you know, what are you going to do if you haven't got the choice? And they say your baby's coming, come and take it.
With so many unanswered questions about Karachi, Saira has managed to contact a couple who have already been through the experience.
Hello, Amjad. It's nice to meet you.
Sobia and Amjad live close by and have 2 children, both from the Edie orphanage.
What you do, you arrive in Pakistan, you ring Edie and you say to them, whenever the next girl comes in, call me. We got there on the 23rd in the morning. We rang them at 10 o'clock. They said nobody's come in yet. By 6 o'clock, a little girl had come in, Sabrina, which we named. We went to see her. And half-past 8. A few people had seen her before us, who were local or something, but they didn't take her because she was only £3 and was quite dark, and these people didn't want a dark, skinny little child. And she had a bit of a funny looking head. Quite dehydrated, and you know, if one was showing her, she was quite skinny. And so we just got there, and we were walking up their steps. And when you walk up their steps, it's probably the most scariest emotional things. Amjad was crying, I was crying, his mother was crying. It's very emotional, and I was shaking. I thought I was going to faint actually going up the steps. I never forget it. And and then we went up. They took the child. You could hear all these sort of kids making noises and babies crying. And this kind of nanny type lady brought the baby out, and they sort of said, "Oh, she's very dark." Like, I thought, they're not selling her very well, kind of thing. And would you want to still take her? And Amjad said, yep.
I had my mind, you know, ready that I'm going to get this child no matter what condition she is. So I decided, when I saw her, I said, no, this is my child. This is my baby now. No matter what condition she is, I'm her father.
I don't think Amjad really saw her, to be honest, but he just went, yep. And then I held her in the taxi on the way home, and I just cried all the way.
Can I, you know, when you saw her, did you love her immediately?
I can't say that love comes just straight away. I can't say that because I don't think it did. Emotion comes, you know, it kind of takes over. And, you know, I was shaking. I was quite scared that I might drop her on the way downstairs, so I was shaking. And then we just signed a form. You give the 25 rupees admin fee, and then we had a taxi, and then we took her back in a taxi. And you know, it's the best thing we've done in our lives, without a doubt, both of them. Yeah. And her in particular, I have to say, her in particular.
I was just thankful to Allah that He fulfilled my all, you know, because we wanted to have our family with the child. So He gave us that, you know, the special girl, Sabrina. So I always thankful to Allah, and that's it.
Sobia and Amjad knew nothing about Sabrina's background when they collected her. Back in the UK 8 months later, they discovered she has the genetic blood disorder thalassemia. She will have to have a blood transfusion every 3 weeks for the rest of her life.
I think so. I think her...
You also just tell me about when you first found out that she had, what is it called?
Thalassemia.
Thalassemia.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, you see, that for me, I don't know how I'd feel if I found...
Well...
You know, do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That is a concern of mine.
Yeah, there you know, hepatitis C, AIDS, thalassemia and other illnesses, which I said I've got a whole list of them. They are prominent, and obviously children who are left are coming from generally deprived areas, malnutrition, and mothers had a hard time. Because I deep down feel nobody wants to give up their child. That's what I feel. So, you know, these mothers, you know, are going through a lot, so they have a lot of problems physically and mentally and genetically. Than Zach.
Sobia and Amjad went on to adopt their son Sharik 2 years later, also from Edie. But Sabrina's illness means the whole family now live with the legacy of thalassemia.
See you later. Bye-bye.
If Saira and Steve are given a baby, they too will have no idea of its medical history. It's a dilemma they never dreamt they'd have to face.
Because I actually got the impression that when we went to Pakistan, you'd have like about 50 babies and you'd go around and you think, I want that one. When a baby comes in, they phone you up and they say, there's a baby coming, would you like to come and get it or whatever? And they just went along. What if, like, we went to see the baby and we think, oh,
I don't think you can judge how you're going to, you know. But I don't think, you know.
That's not the key thing to focus on, is it?
No, I don't think you can anticipate that.
When she said that there's a lot of thalassemia and there's lots of, you know, babies born with AIDS, I mean, I was a bit shocked when she said AIDS because for some reason, you know, you never hear the Pakistani community talk about AIDS or anything. So you don't think it's a problem. But I do agree with you. I think we have to be pragmatic.
The problems of adopting from Pakistan are becoming a major worry. And now a country already in political turmoil suffers its worst natural catastrophe of modern times. The floods have left 20 million homeless, making the country even more unstable.
Oh, gosh.
Well, they're desperate, aren't they?
Despite the chaos in Pakistan, Saira is still determined to adopt a baby from Edie. But for someone usually in control of her life, this is a step into the unknown. She's come to talk things through with her brother Taz and Saadi, his Pakistani-born wife.
Yeah, but Taz, what happens if they come back and they say the baby's got thalassemia or HIV or AIDS? Because it's not fair on Zach that we're going to have this baby and all of the attention will be focused on its health issues. But if it's got a genetic issue that means that it's going to affect our life, we can't take that on board.
Yeah, but that sounds awful. That's
awful.
That's like designer babies, because it's like if we have a child and he's got a disability, we can't say in the hospital, by the way, you can keep him. We'll try again. Then that's what it's like. It's going to be awful.
Adopting a baby in Pakistan will mean being in Karachi for up to 3 months. Whether to take Zach or leave him in the UK is now a real concern.
We're just, you know, Steve's getting... Well, Steve's not getting worried about Karachi, but it's what we do with Zach.
Oh, you take... Oh, right, OK.
So, you see, no matter what happens, we have to leave him for quite a while. What would you do? Do you think would you be scared, Saadi? Would you go with your children now?
Well, it is difficult and it's different now. When the situation change,
Well, you've got to, ain't you?
Yeah.
Really?
That's what I think. I've got to. I'm adopting a kid. It's not, you know, you've got to. It's not like I'm buying a house. We're adopting a child, and I don't think in Pakistan there'll ever be a right time to go.
No. We know Steve. People don't know Steve. They see him as a Westerner adopting a Muslim child, and you can. You know, there's fanatics out there, there is nutters out there, so you've got to be... I'm worried about that because it does play on your mind a bit. It does play on your mind.
As well as their worries about safety in Pakistan, one of the most dangerous countries in the world, Saira has to make sure they're registered with the orphanage in Karachi. She had thought her visit there 4 years ago would help make things go smoothly, but she's having real problems getting hold of the owner, Belkis Edie.
I'm trying to phone the orphanage, trying to speak to Belkis, who runs it, and I've got this lady called Almas, who keeps saying, oh, Saira from England, why are you phoning? I'm like, I'm phoning because I want to adopt and you've got my file. It's so frustrating. So I've got to make sure that I don't piss this woman off. And I've decided that's it. I'm not going to now contact them until I go to Pakistan.
With no formal process to follow, Saira knows a lot depends on making a good impression with Belkis. She alone decides who adopts from Edie and which baby they are given.
Are you going to play with Sabrina, Zach?
Saira and Steve need someone to put their case at the orphanage.
Oh, she's got something for Zach.
Oh, look!
Zach did it.
Amjad's going to Karachi on a family visit, and knowing they need help, has agreed to meet Bilquis there.
I think what I was going to say to you was, obviously, Amjad, you're going to Pakistan, and what we want to talk to you about is there anything that we can do to kind of develop a relationship with Bilquis in terms of we don't know what to expect.
That's right.
Because it's not face-to-face, you can't do... Even if they did have email, Sarah, there's no point. You need to sort of speak to them. You know what it's like.
Pakistan is totally
different.
About being...
So,
talking
the
to
way...
Amjad and Sobia have been through the procedure at Edie twice, and they know handling Bilquis can be tricky.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, Amjad returns from Karachi. It's not all good news. He struggled to convince Bilquis to accept Sarah and Steve onto her waiting list because of their mixed marriage.
The thing that Bilquis seems to have been very concerned about was the fact that Steve was not a Muslim. And that was the point that Amjad sort of said to Bilquis, look, Bilquis, I've met Steve. He's better than a Muslim.
When they first got together, religion is something the couple never really dealt with.
When I met Steve, I can honestly tell you, I don't think I ever discussed being a Muslim with him. He just saw me as Sarah, one of the lads, cheeky, fun, let's go and party. And that's what he fell in love with.
Sarah's faith only became an issue when they decided to get married.
And it came up because of my mum. One thing, my mum is religious, and it means a lot to her. So I said to Steve, look, you're going to have to convert to Islam.
It took a while for it to dawn on me what they were asking me to do, because I come from a background where, it's a bit trivial to say, but we don't do religion really. I think I did feel at the time compromised. In some ways, I guess I felt that I might have lost a part of my identity by going through that. You know, it wasn't something that I would have done if I had been given a really clear choice in the matter.
चले कि मैं 3 दिन रोटी नहीं खाती रो के कि आए ये तो पहले शादी ना सी करनी हुन तो ये गोरे नाल शादी करने लग गए हुन तो मेरा जीना ही आराम हो गया लोग तो मैनू ताने मार ले मैं उसकी फिर कि मैं आखिया तू मुसलमानों से और मुसलमानों से जिस तरीके का मैं शादी करनी है जिस तरह मेरा रूल है.
He did it and it made my mum feel really happy, but then after, like a year afterwards, we did sit my mum down and say, Mum, just so that you know, Steve said he was a Muslim just to marry me, and I'm really sorry that's going to break your heart, but we had to do it. But you ain't going to see Steve praying 5 times a day and doing all of those things. In our culture, there's this thing about you do one thing in private and you do another thing for the public. And you know what? I've had to lie for my existence with my parents for most of it. Definitely up until my dad died. Everything I did was a lie. Where did